Okay, we are going to start with 2.1, organizing and summarizing qualitative data. So recall qualitative data is data that can be broken into categories. So I want you to take a minute and read these vocabulary words. Okay. Pause the video and read them for a minute. Okay. Okay, so welcome back. So we're going to talk about, how you construct a frequency distribution, okay? So we start with our categories here, okay? Then we have frequency, relative frequency, and percent, okay? So those are going to be our titles. So categories are just the categories of our data. Frequency is the number in each category. Relative frequency is the number in the category divided by your total. And percent is your relative frequency times 100. Okay. Okay, so we're going to construct a frequency distribution for this data on blood types. Okay, so if we look at this, we're first going to ask ourselves, what are the categories? Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I see A, B, O, and AB. Okay, so I'm going to put those under my categories. A, B, O, and AB. Sorry, stylus is not awesome. Okay, so to get my frequency, I am then going to count my number of A's. So I'm going to cross them off as I go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my frequency. I'm going to count my B's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now my O's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I should have 9. Okay, and then my AB's, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they should total 25. Okay, and I want to verify that they add up to 25 and there are 25 things up here so I can make sure that I'm counting correctly. Okay, so my relative frequency, I take my frequency and I divide it by my total. So for A, my frequency is 5, my total is 25. So I take 5 divided by 25 using my calculator, I get 0.2. Okay, to get my percent, I then take 0.2 and I multiply by 100 and I get 20%. Okay, so I want you to pause your video and fill in the rest of the table. Okay, so this is what your table should look like when you have it done. Okay, so go ahead and check your relative frequencies and your percents to make sure they match. Okay, I want to point out that the total of your relative frequency should be 1 and the total of your percent should be 100. Okay, so if they are not those, then something is wrong probably in your calculations. Okay, okay, so next we're going to talk about the graphs for these charts. Okay, so the first kind of graph is a bar chart. Okay, so they display bars, either vertical or horizontal, okay, for each category, where the height of the bar is the frequency or relative frequency in the category. Okay, so I know a Pareto chart is a bar chart where the bars are arranged in order from highest to smallest. Okay, so it's just a personal preference if you like them in order, or if you don't, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so here are the steps to make a vertical bar graph. Okay, so for a vertical bar graph, our bars are going to be going up and down like this. Okay, so we draw and label our axes. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis. Oops, sorry. So our x-axis is going to be our category, whatever that may be. And our y-axis is going to be our frequency or our relative frequency. So for space, I'm just going to label frequency as freq. Okay. Then you're going to draw bars up from the category to the corresponding frequencies. Okay. So usually for bar graphs, our bars do not touch. Again, they can. Again, it's personal preference. We tend to prefer to them to not touch. Okay. So next we're going to talk about horizontal bar graphs. Okay, so in this case, our axes swap. So our x-axis, is our frequency, and our y-axis is our category. Okay, so now our bars coming off the category axis. Okay, so now we're going to get a horizontal bar graph because our bars are going sideways. Okay. Okay, our last type of graph is a pie chart. Okay, so pie charts is where each piece of the circle represents the percent in each category. Okay, so the difference here that this represents our percent, so that's where we're going to use that column from our frequency distribution. Okay, and this one can only be for one variable because percents can only add up to 100. Okay, so the book discusses finding the degree of each piece. Okay, so to calculate those using the calculation in the homework, okay, we're not going to do that. We're just going to estimate the pieces. Okay, so we're going to find the percents, okay, like we did before. Then we're going to draw a circle and estimate the different pieces of the pie. Okay, so it's important to know that half your circle is 50%, a quarter of your circle is 25%, okay? And really what we're looking for is the biggest piece the biggest, is the smallest piece the smallest. Those kind of things is 25%, right around there, okay? Okay, so now we're going to do a couple examples, okay? So our first example is to create a bar graph, a horizontal bar graph showing frequency, okay? So we're going to use our blood type data. So a couple of things, we need to know that it's a horizontal bar graph showing frequency. Okay, so for a horizontal bar graph, we need to consider which axis our categories go on. Okay, so our categories go on our y-axis, so I'm going to label that blood type. And again, I apologize for this stylus. It's not awesome. Okay. Okay. And my x-axis, since I want frequency, I'm going to put frequency down here. Okay. Okay. So my blood types are A, B, O, AB. So I can either start at the bottom of my graph, or I can start at the top. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I'm going to start with A, B, O, AB. Okay. Then my frequencies is this column right here. So I have to go from 4 to 9 with a consistent scale. So I might want to go up by ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you show us what your scale is, then you can start just using tick marks. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and label them every so often. Okay. So for A, my frequency is 5. Okay, so for my bar for A, it's going to go to 5. So my bar is centered on the A, goes to 5, and comes back in. Okay. For B, my frequency is 7. So I'm going to take my bar, go to 7, and come back to my axis. Again, it's centered on B. Okay, does not touch the other ones. O goes to 9, comes back in. AB goes to 4, comes back in. Okay, so that is my horizontal bar graph showing frequency. Okay, so what does that tell us about the data? Okay, so it's very easy to see which one's the longest bar, which one's the shortest bar, so which one occurs the most, O, which one occurs the least, AB. Those kind of things are very easily to see from a bar graph rather than just looking at a bunch of data. Okay. So now I want you to take a minute and try to make your vertical bar graph showing relative frequency. Go ahead and pause your video and do that. This is what your completed graph should look like. So take a moment and check it over. Okay, so make sure that you're labeling your axes, blood type, and relative frequency, because that's what it's asking for, and that your bars are going up and down because it says vertical. Next, we are going to do a pie chart. Okay, so again, pie chart shows percents, so we're going to use our percents. Okay, so what I like to do is look for things that are 25, 50, or combinations that are relatively close to that. Okay, so if I look at these, 20 and 28 are 48, okay, and 36 and 16 are 52. So together, each pair makes 50% almost. Okay, so I start with a dot in the middle. So if I'm dealing with A and B, okay, if I come down, if I came straight down, that would be 50%. So if I came a little bit over, okay, I'm going to be about 48%. Okay, then 28%, okay, straight across here from the side to the center would be 25%. So if I come down just a little bit, we can call that 28%. So that's my B. This is A. Okay, so then 16% is going to be smaller than 20% by just a little bit, so we can eyeball that. Okay, and we get AB, and this remaining piece, the 36, would be O. Okay, so again, we're estimating our pieces of the pie. In my math lab, you might be asked to calculate the degree of each piece, but we're not going to be asked to do that on the test because we're not going to use a protractor. Okay, so just make sure your biggest piece is your biggest. In this case, O is the biggest, then B, then A, then AB. Okay, we're going to do an activity in 2.1, so you have an opportunity to ask questions about this material. Thank you.